Hey folks, welcome back to the regular monthly recording I do with my dear friend David Bishop. David, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. Before we get started, I just want to remind our audience to like and subscribe to this podcast. I think it's a pod. I don't know what to call it anymore. It's just
I don't know.
We call it a pod, a snippet of insight from David Bishop.
A vignette.
A vignette. So you can get obviously notified as when the next episode drops. David's looking forward to having this conversation. I think the main numbers, they're quite insightful. Some surprise numbers. I think you hinted at what the surprise is in a previous conversation. So excited to learn more about that. And then we'll talk about where we see first party versus 3PL and what regionals can do to keep competing in this very interesting space that they're in. So David, you have a surprise to tell us about. What's the surprise?
Mark, because I know you were wrestling with trying to understand the numbers this month. One
opens with a compliment, folks.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone is trying to understand the numbers, and this is where context matters. And one of the things that we know happened in May, or specifically during the timing of when we surveyed, was we had Walmart week. Walmart week ran from April 28th through May 4th. Since we survey at the end of the month, we picked up on that. And as a consequence, you can see some pretty significant shifts. Now, we're taking a 30-day view. A few places we ask about past 7 days, but the point simply is there was a big event from the market leader that moved the needle even more during the month versus last year.
So let's talk about this because what I'm sensing, and this is reinforced in other documents that you've published recently, that the market's just not growing. I think it's reshaping. And delivery clearly is pulling ahead. And as you've said consistently month over month since we've been noticing this, is fueled by promotions and a return of lapsed consumer shoppers. Right. So this, and I think we talked about this last month, this is creating pressure for pickup that regionals have invested in and signals a wider shakeout for regionals who haven't adapted or adopted to the new value proposition. The fact that deliveries ascent, and your numbers bear this out, isn't a blip. It's a sign that eGrocery competition is moving decisively into a new phase. That delivery is now the format to beat. And loyalty, retention, customer retention, and how regionals price will need to adjust fast. What's your perspective on where regionals need to prioritize?
Just stepping back, one of the observations I've shared with retailers recently is it's really become a subscription/membership game. And I say that because if you were to look at orders and orders in relation to whether those orders were connected with a membership or subscription, what we're seeing is, high usage or prevalence of those two together. But at Walmart, is through the roof. We're at least 1.5x higher than supermarkets. And this goes along a similar line around, platform usage or mobile app downloads, right? And having that omni-channel look. If you don't have a subscription or membership program, you got to figure out how to get one. One of the things that the regionals who have it understand is that if they're doing it right, they're benefiting in their own regard, right? You can take some looks at regionals who also choose to focus on pickup as an aspect of subscription. And that's important because, most regionals charge a fee for pickup. If they do that, then they have a compelling proposition to a degree for their customers. It's not going to be the same as Walmart, but again, they may not be trying to attract the Walmart customer. They're trying to keep their customer. In fact, Walmart is attracting new customers, but most of those new customers that they're attracting don't primarily shop with Walmart.
So I don't mean to cut you up, but the question that is popping into my head is, And you talk to a lot of regionals, and they reach out to you and asking you for strategic guidance and advice. Getting a subscription membership program when you don't even have a loyalty program in place, when they have a hard time even analyzing the customer data that they have, is there a recommended sequence of events or programmatic steps that you position to a retailer that they should take in order to get to that subscription membership level?
Well, I mean, let's keep aside all the technical details because that's better left for experts like you. Look at Walmart. Walmart didn't have a loyalty program, right? But today, you could argue they have one of the largest loyalty programs. And online facilitated that. The omni-channel view of their app has expanded that. And so now they're getting up there pretty close to the equivalent metric that maybe traditional grocers have used in terms of percentage of transactions on card, right? So for online, Walmart's percentage for all their customers online is north of 70. If you get to look at just customers who are using their delivery, they're getting close to 90% of all those transactions being linked to a membership. So that, in effect, is their loyalty program. So they are able to now do things that they weren't able to do before in that environment, especially in an EDLP environment, whether it's hybrid or not. They are now starting to promote and push those items for recommendations that are driving larger baskets. And so there are a lot of things that they're doing that then add on to that. The subscription really is, from a customer relation standpoint, a handcuff because you're giving them an incentive to save more through that membership or subscription. So they're going to return the favor by just using you more. And what we're seeing with the data that we're not publishing because we're still relatively new with it is that, Walmart Plus penetration within their customers, regardless of the segments, over the last several months have continued to just steadily tick up. And as that happens, a larger share of their order base is tied up or connected to a membership. And I say tied up because that is not going to change unless they disappoint the customers. And I know that firsthand. And they're working really hard on that too, because their out of stock practices and how they're trying to minimize or reduce lost sales is really going to be difficult for anyone else to imitate. And so it just shows that they're looking at the whole picture, because once they've captured them into the Walmart Plus ecosystem, they have to deliver the promised value, and they need to prevent, missteps that would cause someone to question that value. I've had orders that have out of stocks, and I don't accept substitutions. So what I found with Walmart, for instance, is in the past, well, it was a lost sale. I wasn't going to get it. But recently, in the last couple of months, they've started to now offer up free shipping of that out of stock item to my home, maybe the next day or day and a half. I've taken advantage of that once, but in other cases, I haven't because it wasn't an urgent need. But that just demonstrates the degree of commitment they have to keeping their customers engaged and satisfied, right? And the counter is, boy, that's an expensive way of doing that, but it really isn't as expensive as you think if you look at how they execute it through their batch system with their Spark drivers.
So just to be clear, you paid for the product on checkout. It wasn't going to be delivered in your original order. They offered, and how was that presented to you? Was it through the mobile experience, the app experience? And they said, okay, well, it's not available, so we'll have it delivered to you free of charge when it's available. Did they tell you when it would be available?
Yeah, I can't remember all the details. What I can say is, I select the notification to include text notifications. So I'll receive a text notification at the same time I'll receive an email notification, but the text is what I'll see on my phone. And it'll say, we're picking and this one item is unavailable. However, we can send it to you, and it could be either later today or tomorrow, free of charge, right? And in this case, it was a 12-pack of soda, right? So it wasn't going to meet a $35 minimum order, but that was waived because it's not my issue. And they said, we'll drop it off when we're in your neighborhood. So they did do that. One time I took advantage of it. When they sent me the notification that that item was being delivered, I noticed it was one of 13 stops for that driver. So really the incremental cost from the retailer standpoint is the added cost between the 12th and the 13th order. That is the incremental cost. However, the benefit you could look at it is, customer retention.
That's
the
right.
Customer got what the customer wanted, so the customer doesn't have a reason to reconsider and think of other options. It's really that simple. Now, what they're doing is far more complex than that. So that's why it's really a very smart strategy, because it's going to be very difficult to imitate. And I can only anticipate other mass retailers possibly having the ability to do that, but not regionals.
And I know you reference Walmart consistently. There's another large retailer out there that doesn't have a loyalty program, right? And actually have promoted the fact that they don't have a loyalty program. They let their low-cost private label products speak for themselves. The retailer that we're talking about obviously is who, David?
Aldi.
Yes. Do you see Aldi trying to replicate what Walmart has done or is doing? Or would you recommend that they take that step?
Boy, there's a couple questions there. One may get me in hot water. Are they likely to pursue that similar strategy? I would say, based on their public comments, no. If you say, well, does that mean they won't consider something? I would say, recognizing that delivery is a little more challenging for Aldi as compared to Walmart. I think all options are on the table in terms of how you think about it. But that's it. I think an important statement. Aldi still owns the low end of the market. Mm-hmm. They beat Walmart on price online, even though they mark up those products. They just announced, I think it was today or yesterday, so around the June 5th, that they're rolling back about a quarter of the prices in the store. Now, that will make its way through online, but they have a different delivery ecosystem and experience, and the membership is a key component or differentiator for Walmart that Aldi has publicly declared they're just not going to have. At some point, they'll have to reconcile what their goals are with what the realities on the ground are. What that looks like, I'll leave that up to them. We respect the role that the retailers have in owning strategy. We will make those recommendations, and we would recommend looking at some type of program that would help improve the value proposition for your brand while delivering savings to your customer. One of the challenges for many retailers is, okay, we may be involved with a third-party membership program, but the issue there is it's not exclusive and it doesn't protect your customer. So if you look at someone like a Walmart, it is a walled garden to a degree. There are only a few markets, I should say, less than 20% of the top 100 markets where you can go to any third party, and it's only one third party, and shop Walmart, right? So they have moved that way. If you look at the national retailers, they limited their exposure on third party marketplaces more so than regionals. If you're looking at how you grow the business, I mean, you can see the walled gardens are forming to nudge the volume into the first party to grow the volume up to build efficiencies that you can leverage to lower your cost and improve your speed. So subscriptions is another piece of that, or membership or something to that. And that is a lock-in, because I'm on a 1-year plan with Walmart, and I can tell you, just based on the current experience and the savings that they say I've accrued, there's a high probability, probably close to 10, that we'll just simply renew, because it's similar to the Costco experience, where the value equation is just so clear and compelling that there's really no reason to do anything different.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. There's something that you said, and it reminds me of, there was an article published earlier this week in Food Institute. I'm not sure if you read it. It was about the delivery's virtuous circle. It was written by a Wall Street analyst. And essentially the thesis is the large platforms, the 3PLs, have married data, AI, and scale to create this unbeatable flywheel. And so the question is there any real path for a regional grocer, an independent, to compete on digital experience, or are they forced into this condition of co-opetition with the large 3PLs? that will always control data and customer relationships. What's your take on that?
From the retailer perspective, what's the appeal of the third-party marketplace? It's reach, right? So I get added to a new marketplace. I reach new customers. They may be people who shop my store, but now I'm on a platform that they use. What I'm also not saying is I'm doing that because for whatever reason, that customer hasn't been on my first-party platform, my app or my website. And we've talked about this in the past. Part of that, and a large part of it, is awareness, right? And the awareness is driven by advertising, or in this case, the lack thereof. So retailers are looking at these marketplaces as really a market expansion or a way to expand their trade area. And while that makes sense, the unintended consequences, they're putting themselves on a platform that then exposes them to shoppers who may simply shift certain parts. So where a lot of regionals are growing more concerned is the center store leakage. And that occurs primarily with delivery. So where you look at the trends with Walmart, the percentage of non-primary households that don't consider Walmart their primary grocery store that are now Walmart Plus is impressive. So it clearly is saying that something beyond the core element is attracting them, right? And what we've learned is it's primarily the delivery service. And the delivery service has done that because it extended its service area. And that's true for my household. I'm not driving 15 minutes one way, then shopping and driving back at a large 200 square foot, 1,000 square foot store when my primary store is a half mile from my house. But delivery doesn't require me to do that. And as I mentioned to you the other day, I placed my order at like 10:30 at night, and it was on my doorstep at 7 in the morning the next day. I saved time of driving to and from and walking the store, and I saved a lot of money, and that was at Walmart. Now, Walmart also will be absolutely reminding me at all steps of the journey how they're helping save. And at the end, they document it. I can look into my account. What have I saved this year, lifetime? And I would say it's a very conservative estimate because their savings estimates are based on what they provide to you based on their baseline. The things that I'm buying from them weren't things I bought from them. They were things I bought from Jewel. So I'm actually now accruing another huge savings because, as I've talked about in past episodes, I'm saving $3 on my 6-pack of ginger beer. I'm saving half on my household cleaning supplies, and I don't have to go to the store. So I am getting saving time and saving money, which is what people want today, with an emphasis on saving money.
So let me, if I may, touch on something that you published this week, your forecast for the next 5 years. You noted that there are some external factors, the macroeconomic environment, that would affect, obviously, the long-term growth. Where do you see online complementing in-store over the next 5 years?
I think, again, pickup is really the stronger component relative to complementing the in-store experience. Mm-hmm. What we're lacking today, and I'm not here to suggest or even hint at changes, but what is needed is a degree of innovation that we're seeing over in delivery, right? So in delivery, for instance, there's this trend toward expedited or express, but then at the same time, there is this trend toward membership or subscription, as well as in-home, as well as now expansion into pharmacy. And Walmart now has entered the fourth temp zone with express delivery of hot, right? So a lot of innovation on the delivery side. And then you go to the pickup side and say, okay, let's run off. What are those new things, new services that may be attractive to subsegments that could elicit a response in usage that would complement the store, right? About a quarter to a third of the customers who use pickup also go into the store, whether that's by design or just because they forgot something. That reinforces the value of the store in connection with pickup, because you can't do that with delivery, right? We need to see the service expand in some other ways. Maybe it's around the curbside with the deli. And I know that retailers have had that, but they've typically had it in a separate mobile platform, right?
Correct.
What we're lacking on the pickup side is the investment in those innovations that could potentially drive or be a catalyst for driving renewed growth. Otherwise, the reality is, the service area that pickup has is far more limited than delivery because it's driven by proximity to the store. So again, we're going to be dealing with the same dynamics that we would have if we were shopping in the store. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but those are just some initial thoughts.
No, that's great. I think if anyone wants to talk to you about this month's report or any other reports that you've published, how can they get in touch with you?
David.bishop@brickmeetsclick.com.
Awesome. Everyone, hope you like this episode. Like and subscribe for future episode notifications. David, till next month. Take care.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Have a good one.